An oratory from Warren Liz Dana.
During this past August Teen Miss USA pageant, 18-year-old Lauren Caitlin Upton, Miss Teen South Carolina, was asked why 1/5 of Americans are unable to identify the United States on a map of the world. While the fact that this question even exists is clearly indicative of a problem, her response was even more telling. In what is now an infamous YouTube video, Upton answered, "I personally believe that US Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps. And I believe that our education, such as South Africa and the Iraq and other places such as, and I believe that they should, over here in the US, should help South Africa and the Iraq and the other Asian countries." In the end, she still placed 4th. While it would be wonderful to believe that Upton is the exception and not the rule, it seems that her ignorance of national and global issues is far too typical among teenagers today. Let's examine this issue by exploring why this cultural and political ignorance is a problem, the causes of this problem, and what we can do to become more active and more informed citizens. It is an undeniable truth that today's young people are painfully unaware of current events. A student in my government class actually admitted that he thought Condoleezza Rice was a type of side dish. But why wouldn't teens be uninformed when we are surrounded by adult role models who exhibit the same cavalier attitude? Those of us who are country music fans, admit it, you know you are, hear Alan Jackson unabashedly state in his hit song that, "I'm not a real political man. I watch CNN, but I'm not sure I could tell you the difference in Iraq and Iran." And Jackson is not alone. According to a study reported by CNN, only 13%, that's about 1 in 7 young adults, can identify Iraq on a map of the world. And 23% thought that Iraq and Iran were the same country. While this lack of knowledge may seem harmless in discussions around the globe, the Bush administration presented a link between al-Qaeda and Saddam Hussein as a pretext for invading Iraq, and most American people, knowing little about the Arab world, accepted it. A religious zealot like Osama bin Laden would never have collaborated with a secular leader like Hussein. Still, it was one of the considerations for invading Iraq and toppling Saddam's government. No matter where you the fact is that the American people's ignorance of the Arab world led us to conclusions that we are still paying the price for today. And if the adult leaders of our country are guilty of cultural and political ignorance, that sets the bar awfully low for American teenagers. So what else causes us to be so oblivious to the outside world? Well, for one thing, far too many of us don't watch, read, or care about the news. According to a study by Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government, 60% of American teenagers pay little attention to daily news. With 24-hour cable news networks and up-to-the-minute news websites, it would seem virtually impossible to remain uninformed. Yet many of us still manage to accomplish it. The reason for this aversion to all things, part of it is the blurring line between entertainment and journalism, along with corporate consolidation of big media companies, has left many viewers skeptical. But mostly, it's just that we have other, more interesting things to do with our time than listen to fake-looking newscasters drone on about events that have little to no significance in our daily lives. I mean, how many campaign finance reform? David Mitnick, a former assignment editor at CNN, interviewed students at Brandeis University to discover whether or not teens care about political news. The overwhelming no. One student explained that watching the cartoon Family Guy created a sense of emotional investment and instant gratification, while detached from public issues. This sense of detachment is cited as the most common cause of political apathy among teens. In an essay for Newsweek, Michigan State University senior Tracy Carpenter writes, "Sometimes I feel that no matter how I vote, there will always be war, crime, and poverty. For an instant gratification, general colleges and slow-moving democracy is far from empowering. However, it's the system we have, and ignoring our role in it is no way to make a difference." So, is there any way to solve this problem? Of course. Every problem has its solution as long as we're willing to work together to find it. It is our responsibility to become aware of the world outside of ourselves. So pay attention. As Ralph Nader once said, there is no daily democracy without. Part of being a good citizen is knowing what's going on in your nation. If you have to, make a deal with yourself. Promise to spend as much time browsing CNN.com as you do checking your email or your Facebook. Or go support a teammate in extemp if you... Becoming an informed citizen is a lifelong journey. It's not just something that happens once you're given the right to vote. If you're mistrustful of mainstream news, there are plenty of independent newspapers and credible bloggers who can offer a different perspective on news. And if you're feeling detached from the political arena, the internet has revolutionized the way our government interacts with its citizens. Every bill being debated on the state and national level online, you can also express your opinion on candidate websites and YouTube videos. Politicians are paying attention to what people say about them online. John Edwards stopped in the tiny town of Columbus, Kentucky, after a local group lobbied online for a visit. Hillary Clinton chose her campaign song after it was suggested by a supporter and voted for on her campaign site, and voted by his online supporters. Feeling uninvolved is no longer an excuse for being uninformed. Every voter in America has the power to set the political agenda by expressing their opinions. Don't be afraid to talk to people. Your parents and teachers are a great resource for learning about national and international issues, and for gaining perspective on events you may not understand. Often, events that happened before we were even born influence. Don't be afraid to ask someone older if you don't understand. Talk to your friends about current events too. Not only will it help you gain perspective on your own opinions, but it will force them to become informed as well. As we have seen, the apathy that today's young people in the world we live in is truly a problem. The reasons are varied and complex, but it is up to us to reset our mind frames and take an active role in becoming a more informed and proactive. That way, if we ever find ourselves competing in the Miss or Mr. Teen USA pageant, we can confidently assert that 100% of Americans can correctly identify the United States of America on a map of the world.
Could I have the please?